policies right? And if not so, then what are some of the adjustments that need to be made, that is on the policies that we had, so that then we get to see more inclusivity as well as, equitable share for students to ensure that, across the country, then they almost get to benefit. And even if there's going to be some difference, they shouldn't be as humongous as we witnessed today.
Yeah, I think on policies, as a country, we normally do well. If it comes to the written policies, even when you look at the ideation of CBC, excellent
the
idea.
best.
Really, really, really great.
Okay.
You read it, you're like, if our children, even Anya and I, if we could go through the system, this would have been nice, because you'll have identified your talent and started grooming it from such a young age. The challenge, I think, it comes in the bit from implementation.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that is implemented? Like, for example, CBC in and of itself is a very heavy, both to the parent, both to the school. Even in junior secondary, a lot of things are required to make sure that the child is learned, because it's hands-on. A lot of resources are needed to make sure that this is happening. So the question is, how can we contextualize it in so much a way that it's making sense? So that, for example, if you're asking a child, for example, if you're learning about nutrition, create protein or make protein. How do you make protein based on your local context?
Right.
One of the things I remember, even when my brother is, I think, in grade 8, one of the things he came to, when he came home, he asked us is, we were told to create oily surfaces. Honestly, I was like, I'm a graduate. I also don't know what oily surfaces are.
Okay.
So how do you also empower parents to be able to support, when you're asking parents to be able to support their kids in learning? Because one of the challenges that is really standing out is there is lack of parental awareness. And there's already a bad stigma that CBC is bad.
Yes.
When, for example, children are sent home, they are sent to give parents homework, like you're supposed to do the work. You'll hear a lot of parents say, I have to do this work and I already finished.
Right.
But it's more of a supportive role to make sure that you are supporting your child to also learn, creating an humble environment that will enable the child to learn. So we need to think more about how do we implement, and most importantly, even contextualize. For example, if it's a child in Turkana, we can't have equal. The same way this child is learning in Nairobi cannot be the same way this child in Wajir or this child in West Pokot is learning. How do we contextualize it in such a way that at the end of the day, the child can make meaning of what he has learned in school to improve himself, his community, his surrounding, and eventually, become a good citizen, as is one of the things that CBC advocates for.
I listen to this story and I hear some of the teachers there, as well as the principal, saying that, wakati vita ilianza, the teachers fled and they asked for transfer to other, regions that are not risk prone. And I'm just asking myself, so there's the latitude to do that. What exactly happens? And when this transfer letter is accorded, do these people who are now the implementers get to sit down to imagine what happens to the kids who are in these areas, and why do you want to transfer the teachers, and just how, anyway, where are the teachers as to the policy of the CBC competency and the expectations of these very policies in terms of making sure that they instill the right education?
Yeah. Usually what happens is, yes, the teachers will get transfer letters, but it is assumed that every community has teachers. So the teachers who are getting transfer letters are getting transfers to go to safer grounds, but they do not belong here. So it is assumed that they are teachers who are supposed to be teaching these children. That is why that happens. But unfortunately, that never happens, because if I am coming from such a crisis area, the minute I go to teachers training college, then I won't go back home to look for a job there. So the children are left unattended. And I think this is not just happening to those crisis areas. It also happens even in cities.